Hi, I'm Nick Park again from Evangelical Alliance Ireland, and I'm here to remind you once more that it might be Friday, but Sunday's coming. You know, we've been going through this lockdown for a number of weeks now, and now we're looking ahead to emerging from it, slowly, bit by bit, and for us as Christians, culminating with after the 20th of July, when we can restart church services once more. But what that is going to look like? What is the world going to look like? Because everything's going to be changed, and until they find a vaccine, or unless God miraculously removes this virus from the face of the earth, we are going to have to live with social distancing. That means everything's different. How we go to the shops is different. How we spend our leisure time is different. Whether we can even travel to other countries or not, everything is different. Now, I've got some wonderful good news for you, and it's this: that people are most open to the gospel whenever they experience the most change in their lives. That's one of the cardinal principles in church growth theory that has been proved again and again all over the world. Doesn't matter what continent you're on, that if people experience great change in their lives, they are more receptive to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And this applies to if they change their job, particularly if they move to another location, particularly if they move to another country. And that's one of the reasons why so many churches in Ireland experienced growth through immigration. Not just through people that were already Christians coming to Ireland, but discovering that people who had arrived from other countries were more receptive to the gospel because of the great change that they had been through. Now, there's been many times in the church's history where great change, even when it was unwelcome change, has actually seen massive moves of the gospel. One example would be the American Civil War, an immensely painful experience for that nation, and yet it gave birth to so many amazing evangelistic ministries that swept millions of people into the kingdom of God, because the great change that was taking place made people more open to hearing the good news of Jesus Christ. Now, the great news is this: everybody's world has changed drastically. And that means that people are going to be more open to the gospel of Jesus. Those people that have been tuning in and watching online services that previously didn't go to church, it's not just that online is easier, but it's also a fact that change is increasing the receptivity to the gospel. So this creates an unparalleled opportunity. As the church goes back out of lockdown, as the church goes back into having physical meetings again in July, now those meetings are going to look very different. But here we have an amazing opportunity to actually reshape how we do church in a way that will bring in a readily available harvest for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And in fact, after July the 20th could well turn out to be the greatest period of growth that the Church of Jesus Christ has seen in Ireland since the days of St. Patrick. I am so excited to be a part of that. But for that to happen, we as churches and church leaders and individual Christians have got to be focused on reaping the harvest. Because the temptation is going to be focusing on ourselves and our own needs. You see, I'm so aware that so many churches and ministries in Ireland are hurting economically because of all that's been going on. You know, we've been hurting because people don't give as much online as they give when they go to physical church meetings. And many people do, and many people have stepped up and learned online giving. But I'm hearing reports from churches up and down the country of reduced finances because they don't have offerings in their physical meetings anymore. Also, there's going to be the economic hit from all of the jobs that have been lost. Many of us remember what it was like trying to lead churches through the last recession and are not looking forward to the economic challenges that lie ahead. There's also, of course, the costs of when we go back to having physical meetings, just getting ready to comply with social distancing and hygiene requirements. I saw a news report today from a major home improvement store, and they were saying that each one of their stores is having to spend €10,000 per store just to get ready to open again with social distancing and having the necessary hygiene facilities in place and having the signage and everything else. So now, obviously that's a large store. For churches it'll be somewhat smaller, but there are still going to be significant costs for churches for reopening at a time when they can least afford them. And what that all adds up to is a temptation to keep the saints happy. A temptation to just try and make things look like they were before as much as possible. To try to hold on to everybody, to get them back in the fold after the online experience. You know, that's the temptation to do that. But if we fall into that trap, then we've missed this massive evangelistic opportunity. And if we wait and say, well, we'll worry about evangelism 6 months down the road, 6 months down the road, the people aren't living through change anymore. They've got used to these new circumstances, whereas now is the time to be thinking about how can we reap this harvest. As we're reimagining what church is going to look like with social distancing and everything else, instead of just trying to make it as much like before as possible, how can we reshape and reconfigure church that's really going to touch those people who have never sat through a 30 or a 45 minute, but they've been really intrigued by what they've seen in the scaled down online services that they've been watching. How can we reach those people? Yes, change is uncomfortable. You know, just behind me here, this is the main Dublin to Belfast railway line. And right behind me is where Drummin railway halt in County Louth used to be. The trains used to stop here. This was actually a connection. You could connect, there was a branch line, it's not there anymore, but there was a branch line used to run off to RD to serve the sugar factory. And when you were travelling on the Dublin to Belfast train, you would get off and change at Drummin Junction. And in fact, my postal address is Drummin Junction. Harks back to the time when behind me was a railway halt with trains stopping several times a day and people queuing on platforms. You wouldn't believe it to look at it now, but it changed. Change came. A lot of people didn't like that change. They wanted the old railway halt to remain open. But you know what? This railway halt is not going to pick up passengers again, I expect, in my lifetime. The trains will continue to whistle through on the way from Dublin up to Belfast and back down again. The fact is, the world changed and people had to get on with that change. And now our world is changing again. And we have this amazing opportunity in this time of change to reimagine what church can look like and how can we reap a greater harvest for the glory of God and for the kingdom of God. You know, for this to happen, we're going to have to work together. It's going to take us to put our heads together. I'm just so delighted to actually have a role at this time with Evangelical Alliance Ireland. And we need to come together on this. We need to work together. We need to put our heads together. We need to learn from those who have already gone through reopening again after lockdown. We need to learn from those who have already begun in other countries to do physical meetings with social distancing and everything that implies. And by learning, by listening to ideas, by praying together, I truly believe that we can come up with church services that are going to do an absolute phenomenal work for the kingdom of God here in the nation of Ireland. We're not competing with each other, we're working together to reap a harvest. Jesus did not say, pray that you will be a better worker in the harvest field and get more pats on the back and more kudos than the other workers in the harvest field. He said, no. He said, the fields are white unto harvest, so pray that the Lord will send more workers into the harvest field. There's a great harvest waiting for us. Let's cooperate. Let's put our heads together as the Church of Jesus Christ in this land. Let's seize the opportunity, because it might be Friday, but Sunday's coming, and what a Sunday it's going to be.